1534, Cusco. The Spanish ripped the gold from the Temple of the Sun, but beneath their new convent, a door they could never open remained. They sealed it, and they never explained why. The Convent of Santo Domingo sits on the most sacred foundation of the Inca Empire. Before the conquest, the Qorikancha, the Temple of the Sun, was covered with more than 700 gold sheets, each hammered to the thickness of a few sheets of modern paper. The garden held life-sized corn plants made of gold and silver, along with 20 golden llamas tended by golden shepherds. Below that polished stone floor, behind a rough-hewn limestone doorway blocked with mortar and rubble, lies a tunnel system the Spanish called *La Cueva Sellada*, the sealed cave. The official story says conquistadors filled the passages in 1536 to stop Manco Inca's rebels from using them as escape routes. A military necessity, nothing more. But here's what they didn't tell you: the tunnel had already been partially collapsed by the Incas themselves, decades before a single Spaniard set foot in the Andes. And when the Spanish tried to clear it, they found something that made them stop digging. The air changed first, they wrote, a cold draft that smelled of damp stone and something else, something they had no name for. Then the torches began to flicker, not from wind but from a lack of oxygen. The deeper they went, the thinner the air became, until one soldier reportedly collapsed without warning. They dragged him out and never went back in. The Qorikancha, or Qorikancha, was the empire's spiritual center. Its inner walls once held 700 gold sheets, each weighing over 2 kilograms, and a life-sized golden cornfield in the garden. Spanish chronicler Juan de Betanzos wrote in 1551 that the Incas believed a subterranean passage ran from the Temple of the Sun to the fortress of Sacsayhuaman, 1.5 kilometers to the north. Betanzos had married an Inca noblewoman, Dona Angelina Yupanqui, who was also a former wife of Manco Inca. Her family's oral traditions gave him access to stories no other Spaniard ever heard. He called the passage Chincana the labyrinth. For decades, historians dismissed it as myth. Then, in 2012, a team from the National University of San Antonio above del Cusco ran ground-penetrating radar beneath the convent's eastern cloister. The scan showed a void, a tunnel 2.5 meters high, 1.8 meters wide, extending at least 150 meters due north. The dates don't match. The radar data was never published. The university cited structural instability and sealed the excavation access. No explanation was ever given, but the lead technician on the radar project, a geophysicist named Raul Quispe, later told a colleague that the void did not end at 150 meters, that was simply the limit of their equipment's range. The tunnel kept going, curving slightly northeast, and the radar return became stronger, not weaker, as if the stone beyond was denser or lined with something metallic. Quispe wanted to drill a test borehole. The university refused. He resigned 2 months later and now works for a mining company in Arequipa. His field notes have never been located. Look closer at the architecture. The tunnel's visible entrance inside the convent, a trapezoidal doorway cut from diorite stone, uses Inca construction techniques that disappeared after the 1570s. The jambs lean inward at a precise 12-degree angle, a seismic safety feature the Spanish never mastered. But the blocking wall is not Spanish either. It uses unshaped field stones and clay mortar, not the lime and sand mix conquistadors employed for their sealing projects. Radiocarbon dating of organic residue from the mortar, sampled during a 1998 investigation led by archaeologist Dr. Alfredo Valencia, returned a date range of 1440 to 1480, 70 years before Columbus. That investigation was part of a larger mapping project funded by the National Geographic Society, but the final report contained only a single paragraph about the tunnel. The rest of the section was redacted. Valencia himself later told a colleague that the mortar sample came from a depth of 2 meters behind the visible wall, meaning there were at least 2 sealing phases. The Incas sealed their own tunnel, then sealed it again. The question is, what were they hiding? The stone itself offers a clue. The diorite blocks at the entrance show no tool marks consistent with Inca copper or bronze chisels. Instead, the surfaces are unnaturally smooth, almost polished, as if they had been ground against each other for centuries before being set in place. That kind of wear does not happen in a sealed tunnel. It happens in a passage that was used for a very long time, then closed. The Incas did not build this entrance, they inherited it and then modified it. And the modification was not an expansion, it was a reduction. They narrowed the opening from its original width of nearly 3 meters down to the current 1.8 meters, narrowing it like a funnel. They were not trying to keep people out, they were trying to keep something in. And that's where the story changes. The official record says the Incas built the Qorikancha under Pachacuti, the 9th Sapa Inca, around 1438. But the tunnel's alignment does not match the temple's axis. The Qorikancha faces roughly east-west for solar ceremonies. The tunnel runs dead north, straight toward Sacsayhuaman's Muyuk marker, the circular tower that served as the Incas' military and ceremonial heart. Archaeologists have measured the azimuth, 359 degrees, magnetic north corrected for the 1470s. That is not accidental. The Incas laid this passage before the temple above it. But here's what makes that claim impossible. The bedrock beneath the Qorikancha is andesite, a volcanic stone so hard that even modern diamond-tipped drills cut at only 2 centimeters per hour. The tunnel is carved entirely through this stone. The volume removed exceeds 3,000 cubic meters. In the 15th century, with only copper tools and quartzite hammers, that represents over 1 million man-hours of labor. To put that number in perspective, a crew of 50 men working 12 hours a day, every day, would have needed nearly 5 years just to excavate the void, not including the finishing, the ventilation shafts, or the precise smoothing of the walls. Yet no chronicle mentions the tunnel's construction. No oral tradition describes it. The Incas, who recorded everything on quipus, their knotted string accounting system, left no record of digging the largest subterranean void in their empire. The quipu keepers, the *Quipucamayarchs*, memorized entire libraries of tax records, census data, and ritual histories. But on this tunnel, the strings are silent. The silence is so complete that when Spanish priest Cristobal de Molina wrote his 1575 account of Inca religion, he listed every known huaca, sacred place, in Cusco. The tunnel entrance was not among them. Either the Incas forgot a construction project that consumed 5 years of labor, or they never wanted anyone to remember it. The second possibility is chilling because it suggests an organized, empire-wide erasure of memory, something the Incas only ever did for one other thing, the rebellion of their own ancestors, whose names were scratched from monuments and never spoken again. What could a tunnel have done to earn the same punishment? They didn't just seal it, they erased it. The evidence tells a different story. In 1536, Manco Inca besieged Cusco with an army of at least 40,000 men. Spanish records from the siege, held in the Archivo General de Indias in Seville, mention that Inca fighters repeatedly emerged from a hollow place in the ground inside the city's San Cristobal district, striking the Spanish rear before vanishing. Captain Diego de Trujillo, one of Francisco Pizarro's original conquistadors, wrote that he personally pursued a group of warriors into a stone-lined passage near the Qorikancha. He followed for the length of 2 crossbow shots at approximately 75 meters, before the tunnel split into 4 branches. He retreated, ordered the entrance dynamited, and noted that the air became too thin to keep our torches lit. That detail is the anomaly. A tunnel at 2,300 meters elevation in the Andes, which is normally well ventilated, should not have thin air unless it descends sharply or connects to an unbreathable chamber. Surveyors in 1976 from the Instituto Nacional de Cultura attempted to map the tunnel system with a laser distance meter. They penetrated only 40 meters from the convent's basement before their equipment failed, recording anomalous methane concentrations of 400 parts per million, 10 times the safe limit. The source of the gas has never been identified. The survey was abandoned, and the access shaft was resealed with concrete. What makes this even stranger is that andesite does not naturally produce methane. The gas must come from somewhere else, either a deep organic deposit, a geothermal reaction, or a void that has been sealed for so long that anaerobic decomposition has been happening for centuries. But no one has ever found the source. The 1976 team included a geologist named Dr. Jorge Llanos, who later published a paper on Cusco's subsoil. The paper mentioned unusual gas readings but gave no numbers. Llanos died in 2003. His field notes have never been located. Those who knew him said he became withdrawn after the survey, refusing to discuss it even with his graduate students. His widow once told a reporter that he woke up screaming 3 nights in a row following the expedition. She never learned why. When she asked him, he said only, "The ground doesn't lie, but it doesn't tell the truth either. The timeline doesn't add up either." In 1650, a magnitude 7.5 earthquake leveled much of Cusco, including the convent's bell tower. The rebuilding crew discovered 3 sealed doorways in the convent's foundations that predated the Spanish construction. One doorway, still visible today behind a glass panel in the convent's museum, has a carved stone lintel showing a snake eating its own tail, an Ouroboros, a symbol that appears in no known Inca iconography. The snake is rendered with 2 heads, each biting the other's tail. Dr. Maria Rostworowski, the preeminent historian of Inca culture, examined photographs of the carving in 1988 and stated that it has no parallel in the Andean artistic tradition. She suggested it might be pre-Inca, possibly from the Wari civilization that dominated the region from 500 to 1000 AD. but the wary never built tunnels of this scale. Carbon dating of mortar from the lintel surround, performed by the University of Cusco in 2005, gave a mean date of 1340 AD, plus or minus 40 years. That is 2 centuries before the Inca Empire reached Cusco. Someone else dug the tunnel first. The Incas inherited it, expanded it, and then sealed it. The Ouroboros itself is a puzzle. The symbol appears in ancient Egyptian, Greek, and Norse traditions, usually representing cyclicality, eternity, or the boundary between worlds. But in the pre-Columbian Andes, there is no known tradition of the Ouroboros. The closest parallel is the *Amaru*, a 2-headed serpent that appears in some Huari textiles, but that serpent does not bite its own tail. The carving behind the glass panel is unique, and it is staring directly at the sealed entrance. When the museum installed the glass panel in 1998, the workers reported that the stone behind the carving was noticeably colder than the surrounding wall, a difference of about 4 degrees Celsius, measured with an infrared thermometer. The museum's maintenance log noted the anomaly but offered no explanation. The cold spot remains to this day. Tourists who press their hands against the glass report a faint vibration, barely perceptible, like the hum of a distant generator. But there are no generators in that part of the convent. The vibration has never been measured scientifically because the museum does not allow instruments near the display case. When a journalist asked why in 2010, a museum official replied, "We are preserving the integrity of the artifact." The journalist noted that the official would not make eye contact while saying it. But here's what makes that claim concrete. In 1911, Hiram Bingham, the Yale historian who brought Machu Picchu to global attention, explored a sealed tunnel entrance behind the Sacsayhuaman fortress. He crawled 40 meters into a passage that matched the convent tunnel's dimensions exactly, 2.5 meters high, 1.8 meters wide, cut through andesite with the same trapezoidal cross-section. Bingham's field notes, archived at Yale's Sterling Memorial Library, record that the passage ended in a massive stone door blocked by a single slab of granite, 3 meters tall and half a meter thick, unmortared but perfectly fitted with no visible means of opening. He tried to pry it with iron bars. It did not budge. He noted that the stone was clearly not from the immediate area. Granite does not occur naturally within 5 kilometers of Sacsayhuaman. The nearest granite outcrop is in the Vilcabamba Range, 75 kilometers away. Transporting a 17-ton block of granite across that terrain without wheeled vehicles or draft animals would have required over 200 men dragging it for months. The Incas did not build a door for themselves. They built it to keep something out. Bingham's team also reported that the air coming from the edges of the granite slab was noticeably warmer than the surrounding tunnel, a temperature difference of about 3 degrees Celsius, measured by a mercury thermometer he carried. Warm air rising from a sealed door suggests an open space beyond, possibly a large chamber where geothermal or biological activity generates heat. Bingham wrote only 1 sentence about this in his diary: "The stone breathes." He never elaborated. Bingham's assistant on that expedition, a young Peruvian engineer named Toribio Mejia Zesp, later became a respected archaeologist. In a 1959 interview, Mejia Zesp recalled the door with visible unease. "We heard something on the other side," he said. "Not footsteps. A kind of low hum, like a beehive but slower. The professor told us not to mention it." The interview was published in a small Lima newspaper and never translated into English. Mejia Zesp died in 1990, having never spoken publicly about the door again. But his personal papers, donated to the National Library of Peru, contain a single yellowed page with a sketch of the granite slab and a notation in his handwriting: airflow from bottom edge, 0.3 meters per second, direction outward, temperature 21 degrees Celsius, ambient 18 degrees Celsius. Possible evidence of pressure differential from sealed chamber. He never published this observation. No explanation was ever given for the pressure differential. A sealed room should have no airflow at all. No explanation was ever given for that door. Bingham moved on, more interested in the surface ruins. The Peruvian government sealed his excavation in 1912, citing looting concerns. But local Quechua oral tradition, recorded by anthropologist John Hislop in his 1984 book *The Inca Road System*, tells of a cave of the dead that connects Sacsayhuaman to the Qorikancha. Elders in the community of San Blas describe the tunnel as *Norpak Pasha*, a time before time, belonging to a race of stone builder spirits called the *Huari*, not the wary culture, but supernatural beings who could soften rock with plant juices. The stories are consistent across 4 separate communities recorded between 1942 and 1978. The tunnel was not for travel. It was a boundary. On the other side, the elders say, there is no sun, no moon, only wind that whispers names. One elder, interviewed by Hislop in 1976, added a chilling detail: when the wind stops, you hear footsteps coming toward you. Hislop noted that the elder refused to say more, and the interview ended abruptly. Hislop's own notes, now held at the University of Texas, contain a marginal annotation in his handwriting: check Cusco death records for 1953, multiple disappearances near San Blas Church. No explanation for that annotation was ever provided. Hislop died in a plane crash in 1993 while surveying Inca roads. His Cusco fieldwork was never published in full. The disappearances he noted, 6 people, all adults, all vanished within a 2-block radius of the church over a span of 8 months, were recorded in parish records as runaways or travelers who left the city. But local residents who lived through that year told a different story. In a 1998 documentary filmed by a Peruvian television crew, an elderly woman named Clara Quispe described hearing a crack in the ground near the church one night. It sounded like stone breaking, she said in the documentary. Then a man screamed, and then nothing. In the morning, there was a hole in the street, about the width of a man's shoulders. The city filled it with concrete the same day and said a water pipe had burst. The documentary was never broadcast. The crew's footage was seized by municipal authorities, who cited unauthorized excavation of protected areas. The cameraman, who spoke to a journalist before his death in 2005, said the crew had lowered a microphone into the hole before it was filled. We heard breathing, he said. Slow, heavy, like something asleep. And then a voice. Not words. Just a sound. We pulled the microphone up so fast the cable burned my hand. The recording was on the seized tape. It has never been recovered. The convent is still there today. You can visit the Qorikancha Museum, walk the Spanish cloisters, and see the Inca stonework that survived the conquest. You can even peer through a small iron grate in the museum floor where the sealed tunnel entrance is visible, a dark triangle descending into absolute blackness. The convent's management installed that grate in 1999. They removed it in 2003 after 3 visitors reported hearing a low, rhythmic pulse from the opening. The pulse was never recorded. The grate was welded shut and covered with a display case. No further investigations have been permitted. The Peruvian Ministry of Culture cites safety risks. But the Spanish sealed it in 1560. The Incas sealed it before them. The Wari, if they were the original builders, also sealed it. Their tunnel segments show 3 distinct blocking walls from 3 different eras. Each civilization, when it controlled Cusco, looked into that darkness and decided to wall it off instead of exploring it. That pattern alone is unprecedented. In most ancient sites, successive cultures reuse, loot, or convert subterranean spaces. Here, every new ruler added another barrier. The barrier from the Wari period is the oldest, a dry stone wall made of irregularly shaped basalt blocks, some weighing over 100 kilos. The Inca barrier sits 2 meters behind it, built with their signature trapezoidal ashlars. The Spanish barrier is the newest, a rough concrete plug poured in the 1560s. 3 walls, 3 empires, 1 shared decision: do not go further. Think about the courage of the men who built those walls. They were not cowards. The Incas faced down landslides and enemy armies. The Spanish crossed an ocean and conquered an empire. Yet something in that tunnel made them afraid in a way that gold and glory could not overcome. Modern investigations exist, but they are fragmentary. In 2018, a Belgian Polish team requested permission to lower a fiber optic camera through a borehole near the convent's garden. The request was denied. That same year, ground-penetrating radar from a separate university study, published only in a limited circulation internal report, suggested the tunnel extends not just to Sacsayhuaman but also branches east toward the Inca site of Pucapucara, another 3 kilometers away. The radar showed a chamber at the intersection of the 3 branches, a circular room 25 meters in diameter, with a ceiling height of 6 meters, large enough to hold a 3-story building. No known Inca structure has a circular underground chamber of that dimension above ground or below. The official explanation says the radar signal likely misinterpreted a natural karst cavern. But andesite does not form karst caves. That requires limestone. The bedrock is volcanic. The chamber is artificial. And it is empty, no artifacts. No bones, no charcoal from torches. Whoever built it left no trace of occupation. They built a void, sealed its entrances, and abandoned it. The radar also detected a slight temperature anomaly at the chamber center, approximately 2 degrees warmer than the surrounding rock. Geothermal gradient cannot explain it, because the chamber is only 20 meters below the surface. Something in that room is generating heat. The 2018 internal report included a single line that the Ministry of Culture later ordered redacted: thermal signature consistent with slow biological decay, but no organic material detected in any scan. The lead author of the report, Dr. Eliana Mamani, resigned from the university 3 months after its publication and declined all interview requests. A colleague who spoke on condition of anonymity said Mamani told him she was afraid to sleep in her own house after the radar survey. She said the chamber looked empty on the scans, but the temperature told a different story, the colleague recalled. Something was alive in there, something that didn't show up on any of the instruments. Mamani now lives in rural Chile and has not published any archaeological research since 2019. The official record stops here. The Spanish chroniclers say nothing about the chamber. The Incas left no quipu encoding its purpose. The wary left no pottery inside, unusual for a culture that filled every ritual space with offerings. But the evidence tells a different story. The tunnel's ventilation shafts, small stone-lined tubes that reach the surface, are spaced exactly every 20 Inca*Recra*, approximately 25 meters. Modern fluid dynamic simulations, conducted by Universidad Nacional de Ingeniería in Lima in 2015, showed that this spacing maintains oxygen levels at 15% in the main passage, marginally breathable but insufficient for torches or human exertion. The tunnel was not designed for regular use. It was designed for something else. The simulations also showed that the methane concentration in the chamber, if the 1976 reading is accurate, would be explosive at any spark. The Incas never used iron or flint for fire starting inside the tunnel. They used only a dry, sparkless friction method called *Pyri star. They knew. The simulation team, led by Dr. Hector Sulca, published a paper in the Journal of Andean Archaeology that included a single, heavily redacted paragraph about the ventilation system. The raw data was never released. Dr. Sulca declined to comment when contacted by journalists in 2019, citing an agreement with the Ministry of Culture. One of his graduate students, who spoke on condition of anonymity, later said that the simulations kept producing an unexpected result. The airflow in the chamber was not passive. It pulsed at regular intervals of approximately 47 seconds, as if something was breathing. The student said Sulca removed that finding from the final paper. He told me it was a calibration error, the student recalled, but we calibrated 5 times. The pulse was real. It had a period of 47.3 seconds, with a standard deviation of less than 1 second. That's not noise. That's a mechanism. The student attempted to replicate the simulation after graduation, using open-source software and the same parameters. He got the same pulse. He wrote a brief paper and submitted it to a small geophysics journal. The paper was rejected without peer review, with a note from the editor saying the results lacked relevance to surface archaeology. The student now works as a data analyst for a telecom company. He still has the simulation files on an external hard drive. When asked if he would share them, he said, "I'm not sure anyone should look at that data too closely. Some things are sealed for a reason. The tunnel system is still there. You cannot visit it. You cannot request access." The Peruvian government has designated the area beneath the Convent of Santo Domingo and Sacsayhuaman as a restricted archaeological zone since 1996. No permits have been issued for any invasive investigation. The sealed door inside Sacsayhuaman's granite slab, the one Bingham tried to pry open, was covered with earth and rubble in the 1930s by a team of Peruvian engineers who refused to explain their work in any written report. The only surviving record is a brief line in the logbook of the Cusco Municipal Works Department, Sector Muyuk Marca, reparation of terrain, filling of anomalous cavity with local soil and stone, work completed March 14, 1934. No further elaboration. No photographs. No reason given. The engineers are dead. Their families remember only that they were frightened but not allowed to speak. One grandson, interviewed by a local journalist in 2005, recalled that his grandfather came home that night white as the mountain snow and immediately burned his work clothes in the yard. When asked why, the engineer said only, "There are things under the city that should not have air." The journalist who recorded that interview, Carlos Herrera, attempted to file a follow-up story for the newspaper *El Comercio Star. The story was killed by his editor, who told him the Ministry of Culture does not want panic about the old tunnels. Herrera kept the interview tape in his personal archive. In 2017, he reported that the tape had gone missing from his home. No signs of forced entry. The tape was simply gone. Herrera is still alive, living in Lima. He refuses to discuss the tunnels. When a researcher contacted him by email in 2021, he replied with a single sentence, "Some questions are better left underground." Below street level, the Cusco is not the only one. The Inca Tunnel remains the city's deepest secret, not because it was lost, but because every civilization that found it chose to seal it, hide it, and never reopen the door. And that is not an accident. That is a pattern. From the Edinburgh vaults to the Seattle underground, the world-sealed spaces share one thing, something that the people above ground decided should never see the sun again. But the tunnel beneath the Temple of the Sun is different. It was not filled with trash. It was not flooded. It was not converted into a saw. It was carved, decorated, ventilated, and then deliberately abandoned and blocked with a granite door that still, today, has never been opened. The Incas did not forget it. They walled it off with the same precision they used for their most sacred temples. The Spanish, for all their gold-hungry violence, did not dynamite it. They built a church on top of it and told everyone to pray facing away from the sealed entrance. The archaeologists who found the methane and the Ouroboros and the 3 separate blocking walls did not publish their full findings. They wrote reports that ended in ellipses, not conclusions. The door is still there, beneath 17 tons of granite and 4 centuries of silence. You cannot go inside. The only question that remains is not why they sealed it. That is obvious, fear. The real question is what they heard through the stone before they put the last block in place. Below street level, the Cusco is not the only one.